If you look at the DOJ, they announced, they released 3 million pages. It's like this is all they're supposed to be doing. And frankly, the DOJ, I think, should just say, we have other things to do.
Donald Trump openly calling for the Department of Justice to get back to his agenda in the wake of the latest release of the Epstein files. And a large part of that agenda, as we've seen, is his revenge tour against his perceived political enemies. Among the targets are the 6 members of Congress who posted a video urging members of the military and the intelligence community to refuse illegal orders and stand up for the Constitution, which is actually what the law prescribes. And of course, Trump didn't like that. He accused the lawmakers of, quote, seditious behavior punishable by death. Punishable by death. He put that out on his social media feed. And he reposted calls from supporters to hang those Democratic members. The Department of Justice has now opened investigations of those folks, including Senator Elissa Slotkin of Michigan, a former CIA analyst, demanding that she comply with a voluntary interview. Today, Senator Slotkin rejected the DOJ's request to cooperate and is considering suing the administration.
They are purposely using physical and legal intimidation to get me to shut up. But more importantly, they're using that intimidation to deter others from speaking out against their administration. The intimidation is the point, and I'm not going to go along with that.
Senator Elissa Slotkin, a Democrat of Michigan, joins me now. Senator, good to see you. Thank you for being with us this evening.
Thanks for having me.
Can you lay out what the DOJ wants of you and what you've told them?
Well, first the FBI and then the Department of Justice, contacted us late last year and again right after Christmas break, wanting us to sit down for an interview and as part of an inquiry. And, I think it's hard not to interpret that, when the president of the United States tweets over a dozen times that you should be investigated, arrested, and ultimately hanged, that, it was a direct response to the commander in chief pushing that agenda. So obviously we had to hire lawyers, and you need to figure out a whole strategy. And we've been talking to the Department of Justice lawyers, but they kept pushing and kept coming for this interview. And we just made the decision. I'm not gonna just comply when something is so obviously an attempt to weaponize the federal government.
It's also not legally dubious ground. I mean, you and your fellow members of Congress who made that video, you didn't call on anyone to do anything unlawful.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 90-second video that simply restated existing law, that if you're in the military, you have the responsibility to refuse illegal orders. That's part of the U.S. law. Yes. So, and it's all in the open. We didn't do anything undercover, and I talk about it openly. So in a country that believes so firmly in freedom of speech, it seems a little crazy to most people I talk to, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. But I think they, like I said, they really are using this like legal intimidation, physical intimidation as well, but legal intimidation to sort of paper you over and get you to be quiet. And there were certainly smart people in December who were telling me, hey, just like keep a low profile, sit on your hands, don't agitate, and hopefully this whole thing will go away. And, when your family's being physically threatened, you take a beat and you think about that. And so, over Christmas break, obviously, most people are not talking about news. I wasn't, doing anything political. And I came back, and January 5th or something, here comes another letter and another request for interview. So sitting on your hands and keeping a low profile actually doesn't help. It's the opposite. And so we just decided to go on offense and make them tap dance a little bit.
And you have said that the DOJ should retain its records on this. Yeah. Because you are prepared to put them on their back feet.
Yeah, I mean, technically, we were keeping our options open for suing them for infringement of my constitutional rights. It's just freedom of speech. It's basic founding father stuff. So in line with the law, we asked them to retain those records. And I think it's important because, the Supreme Court has basically said, well, when a president is in the Oval Office, he can do almost anything. But they have no such immunity and no such permissions for the people who are doing the president's bidding. And I think it's important that people understand that there can be consequences when you use this political, when you politicize the federal government and the justice system. Yeah,
and you don't have to actually be a PhD in history you don't even have to go back to to Richard Nixon. There have been lots of examples of people who do president's bidding who don't get the protections of a president. There are a lot of enablers around this president as it relates to the carrying out of his wishes through the Department of Justice, through ICE, through CBP, through the FBI.
Yeah, I think, look, he couldn't be doing what he was doing without just legions of people who are just saluting and saying, yes, sir, without thinking about either the morality, the legality, the ethics, the long-term consequences to the country. I mean, I think, I think that's the thing that we've lost here. And I recently lost my father, and there's no one in the world who taught me more about right from wrong. Just, he was a lifelong Republican, had very different political views, but there is a right and there's a wrong, and it's just like people have lost their moral compass. And it's so many times a day, so many times a week that we sort of lose sensitivity to it. But there is a right and wrong. And we don't weaponize the federal government and the justice system against people exercising freedom of speech.